welcome to Web of Light. I am here with
Angie Donahue.
And I'm Dr. Kevin, and we want to welcome our Web of Light family as we do every week as we share insights, ideas, and people who are weaving a web of light. Our job here is to help spiritually connect you, enlighten you, inform you. I don't know, did I leave one out? Anything?
No, I don't think so. It's just, we're just kind of letting you see this in your living room so that you can get some ideas and inspirations on what holistic, metaphysical, alternative health, all that good stuff is all about.
Yeah. Just remember, if you're going to invite me into your living room, you want to use slip covers. I'm a little sloppy. For any of you who could be joining us for the first time, or if you have just recently discovered Web of Light, you may be one of our new incoming channels, stations that we're picking up. I know we're now seeing from Maine to California. I'm back again. We don't always get notified when we're picking up new stations, so please send us an email at Dr. Kevin, D-R-K-E-V-I-N, at weboflight, woboflight.com, and let us know where you live and how you enjoy the show, and if there's any topics you'd like us to talk about. We open up that to all of our viewers. If there's a certain topic you want to talk about, if there's a certain thing you want Angie and I to discuss or us to find an expert on, or you know somebody local in the Hudson, New Hampshire area that you think would make a good guest, please let us know. So, this has been quite the hurricane season, and it's far from over. So, I know that our Web of Light astrologer, Dorothy, said that, the eclipse oftentimes brings some weather.
Weather, yeah.
Do you think that there are any... Is this just part of our natural pattern, or do you think that there are any spiritual messages that are supposed to be getting happening, so to speak?
Through all of this that's going on right now with the weather and stuff?
Yeah.
I mean, there is a spiritual message in any type of works of nature that go on. Okay, because
so
of the fact that
there's messages in the weather, whether you want them or not.
That's
okay.
About the, yes, you said that perfectly. But I know for a fact, feeling, okay, the feelings that I'm receiving now is a lot of this energy is being deployed out so that people can understand what it is to become a community again, what it is to become helpful to each other. And honestly, in Texas, I mean, God help those. I mean, I'm just, my heart went out totally with the people in Texas, as well as the other spaces. However, I noticed in Texas one thing that I really, really loved. And that was that we had a tragedy many years ago that caused all kinds of havoc. People were stealing from each other. People were horrendously doing insane things to each other. Now in Texas, when this all went down, one of the biggest pieces I saw in the headlines was how they all connected, came back together, worked with each other as a community, helping each other piece by piece, which brought in more of the unity of the entire United States and possibly the world from that last disaster that happened many years ago, where it was just everybody was doing their own direction, everybody was doing their own piece.
Well, one of the things I want to say is that definitely Katrina was handled very differently than Houston by the very fact of the population, how people came together on it, some of the different things. One of the things I noticed, and if it happened, it did not come across my radar screen, so if you saw this, I don't know. Fill me in. But in Katrina, you did have some of your traditional nutcase religion big mouths coming out and talking about how this Katrina, because New Orleans was an evil city, was this vengeance from God.
Yeah, but that's, again, part of that negative ploy that was all around it.
Yeah, well, but some of these, again, I frankly, again, they're nutcases. If it offends you, don't watch my show, because they're nutcases. And they're not the kind of nuts that are good for you. they're the bad nuts, just
Yeah.
like trans oils or something.
But
You know,
anything
good-
that's done in that way, and we always discuss this when we're offering classes and workshops and bringing in our intuitiveness and our beliefs with the holistic, is that anything that is brought out in a negative pattern of that increases the negativity. And so therefore, you're saying the nutcases, but yes, the nutcases have to stop no matter what the negativity is. It's just like, bullying. Bullying is not a good thing because it's negative energy that increases. So it's the same idea. We have to start to come in as a community, not bully each other into these beliefs.
Well, I mean, if you remember back when they had all of the chaos and death in Hades, you had again, they all had one thing in common. They were speaking from God, and they were holier than thou Christians. And when I say that, I'm not putting down all Christians. Do not hear that. There are nutcase people in every religion. But, we get up in arms that every time somebody walks by that looks like they might be a Muslim, that they're an evil terrorist. And they're no more terrorists than some of these nutcase Christians are. And they're certainly no more of a bully. And, they said that Haitian, the whole Haitian thing was an act of God. And there was, praying away the hurricanes on the coast of Virginia because, asking people to repent and the hurricane wouldn't hit and all. Just nutcase stuff. And it just seemed like I didn't see any of that with Texas. Texas is its own brand of nutcakes, but that's beside the point. But I have friends in Houston and friends in Austin and friends in various parts of the state, and but I think that's different. Maybe man is getting a little more enlightened.
Again, I won't give him that much credit, okay? I honestly, you've traveled around.
I've traveled
You've
through
traveled all over the place. So,
I've traveled throughout the U.S. and Europe.
I don't know, but when I've gone out to the West Coast versus the East Coast, I feel that there's much more participation and like taking care of each other when there is a disaster. Like I had an aunt that lived out there, and every time they had something going on with even their family, it was almost as though neighbors from like a large surrounding area would come in and take care of them for like that whole week or whatever. And I've seen that. But I don't see that as much, honestly, on the East Coast as I do on the West Coast.
I've spent time in South Carolina and Georgia. I used to live in Virginia. They may show up with a knife to put in your back when they help you, but they show up.
But you do see the difference, though, don't you?
Yeah, but they do show up. I mean, how else, how else can you look at somebody and completely turn them into a puddle by going, bless your heart, if you're not there helping them, so at least you're helping them. They're feeding them bad food in casserole dishes, if nothing else.
Okay.
So anyways, but I just wanted to make a note that I think that there is a difference, the way that the Texas piece was handled, from on the ground versus the way that Katrina was. And of course, Harvey hit a much larger population base with 3 or 4 times more rain.
Oh, yeah, big time, yeah.
But here's the other thing before we introduce our today's guest that I just want to swirl around here for a second. We are in an age where things are getting exposed. Dorothy talks about it every time we do our monthly astrology thing, that more secrets are coming up from the surface, more charlatans are getting exposed, more truths are coming up, and that, and we talk about it. We talk about it when we talk about people that are out there peddling fast food spirituality, that they're going to, do something for you in 5 minutes that used to take 5 years, and that somehow, oh, well, we've compressed time. there's still something about time and service and experience and interactions. I mean, today's guest has some Native American heritage, as I do, and I don't think that anyone can say that a native way of dealing with the world was, oh, hurry up, let's do this, 5 years of study in 5 minutes, and then you'll be all good. There was a much more respectful learning curve and pace and stuff. But I think that these hurricanes, and I think all that they're bringing about, is part of the stir up of literally churning stuff up from the bottom of the ocean and scattering it into the air. So, with that said, I'm going to introduce today's guest. We want to welcome on the show today Liz Bergeron. She was born in Red Lake, Ontario, Canada. Be careful, you could be getting your deportation papers any day now. Trump didn't get swept away with the hurricane, unfortunately. In a very small reservation. Her mother was full Ojibwe native, and her father was French Canadian. And there's some Scottish thrown in there, which I like, because, I'm getting the whole kilt and my clan tartan for my wedding. So, that works for me. She was always seeking enlightenment as an adult, and her life was difficult until her mid-30s, until she found her roots and met, she actually met people who opened all kinds of doors. I call that meeting your tribe, but we don't want to confuse that with like the, Ojibwe tribe. And she studied massage therapy and found Reiki, and Reiki healed her life. She's since done practices in the Lakota tradition, and she hosts drumming circles and does all sorts of ceremonies and things like this. And so with that being said, I want to introduce Liz Bergeron. Liz, welcome.
Well, thank you for having me.
You are welcome. So the first question I have is, so you practice the Lakota practice. Can you, a lot of times people just throw Native American in like it's one big culture, tribe, like the people that were in the Micmacs and the Ojibways and the Lakotas all did the same thing, and we know that that's a myth. So what drew you to Lakota practices instead of your own tribe? I'm curious.
Well, I didn't, I wasn't brought up with the people where I was born. And, I was brought up in the foster care system, so I was all over the place. And I lost my heritage as a child, a teenager, and a young adult along the way. And it was not until I was in my 30s that I met some people who helped me to get back in touch with the Native traditions. And eventually, it started off with Micmac and some Narragansett people, and then eventually I ended up meeting a Lakota teacher, and that's what I follow. And the reason I follow that is, I don't know, there's just something in me that really wants to do things the traditional way. There's just something in me that anything that's ancient, I really respect and I really honor it. I don't know if it's because I always want that sense of belonging to something or someone or a community, but I really honor that tradition. Their way of living just an everyday life or practicing these ceremonies is truly spiritual, beautiful, all love, all inclusive, and it's certainly very powerful, and something to not be messed with either, to not get it confused with other things. And the more I learn about it, the more I respect it, and the more I'm very gingerly about how I apply it in my life. And I'm really, really, I'm just so grateful to be where I'm at with that.
So, what you practice, or it's like a practice of working with your Native American culture?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
All right. I'm just curious because I actually have a friend who's, I want to say she's part Lakota. You know who I'm speaking of. But anyway, I'm
still shocked you have a friend, so go ahead.
I know. But it's like, she keeps a lot of things secret to herself. Do you understand that?
Oh, yes, I do.
Okay.
I understand.
But where does that, like, that's why I guess I'm a little...
That's why I say I'm very gingerly. The more I learn about the traditions and the way of doing things and applying these things into your daily life, that's why I say I'm very gingerly. I'm very respectful in the manner that I share some of those traditions, because some of those traditions the Lakota people really want to keep.
Yeah.
And because they want to preserve it and they want to pass it along to their own people. And not that we're not part of that, we certainly are, but their traditions have been lost along the way. And, bringing it back to the younger generations because they're so lost and broken it's really, it's going to take some time. It's going to take a lot of time.
Yeah.
So there are things that we can share and things that we probably, it's better not to.
Yeah.
Unless we have the direction of an elder.
Okay, so now I have to ask, because I don't want to go any further into this until I ask. When you look at, like we were just discussing, and I could see you a little bit kind of nodding and you really wanted to be in that discussion, I could tell, but we were talking about, the hurricanes and the things that are going on at this time. What was your, what did you
my
feel
personal
from it?
thing, and
Yeah.
this really, I'm not taking in the Lakota tradition or
Right.
piece that I, have in my life, but my personal feel about it is that it's part of our evolution. And there are a lot of spiritual things that play into that. The evolution of this earth is a big thing. It's changed drastically. The atmosphere has changed.
Yeah.
The way that we are scientifically has changed. And I think all of it plays a big role into it. And it's part of our evolution. And for me personally, I feel that even some of the negative things are part of our evolution. How are we ever going to find each other unless we experience something drastic? And you mentioned it, the difference between, Katrina and Harvey, the difference in how we reacted to that there's a big difference. I too have not seen anything in the media that said anything different than what you shared.
Yeah.
And so I think that's part of the evolution. And I feel that there are more light workers, healers coming together in this kind of platform, to talk about those things and to open people up and to, gain greater understanding. And I really feel that the best kind of light workers and healers are the people that are always open and always learning.
Well, and I think that, there's a couple of different, I've seen a lot come and go because I started doing professional psychic work in the 70s. So I've seen decades pass and watched the spiritual community do all sorts of stuff and have kind of shifted in and out and seen things become really hot and then not, and suddenly somebody's new on a pedestal and they're great, and then suddenly they're not. And now we have the latest thing, the whole Doreen Virtue thing, and there's lots of different things that go on here. But one of the things that we're always trying to also make our audience aware of is I believe that spiritual seekers are at an all-time high. Would you agree?
I would definitely agree.
When you have a very active, hungry group searching for spiritual practices, spiritual meaning, that are trying to do this, and that have checkbooks, you have some really less than honorable people that put out shingles and have signs. People that weren't doing it when it, let me tell you, it wasn't popular in the 70s when I started. I got a lot of people at malls going like this when they go by me and trying to save my soul, which I kept on telling them wasn't lost, go away. So we often talk on this show, how do you identify a true spiritual teacher and somebody that's teaching you the real deal? And so that's really important, for our listeners. Now, you've been doing active spiritual teaching how long?
I've been doing it for probably about 20 years. But I've had my share of experiences with teachers who were, some on the up and up and some not.
Yeah.
And my personal experience with that is that sometimes you need to learn those lessons in order to know the difference. And sometimes you need to learn those lessons in order to appreciate a good one versus one who may not be on the up and up. And for me, no matter what they are offering, whether it's on the up and up or not, is all good for me because it's my choice. It's my choice and my decision to do whatever I need to do with that. And I can make that choice of, doing something on the up and up or not. But I'm not one of these people that really points the finger at someone who may not be on the up and up. I'm more the person that will say, go and experience it. Go and experience it to the fullest, because I did. And it taught me so much. It taught me so much, not just about how to look at people and how to love them truly unconditionally, but it taught me so much about myself and how to trust myself. And really it helped me to empower my own self and really know what I was all about and where I was going and what my purpose was. So for me, it's all valuable. That's how I look at it.
Well, there's a very interesting split in education. A lot of modern education is, what I call the vomit system of learning, where they shove things down your throat and you just, if you vomit it up in the right order, they tap you on the head and they move you forward. Never been a big fan of that. And I've worked since the late 90s with ADD kids and have several books out on it, and I'm not a big proponent of that. I'm a big proponent of the critical thinking skill style. Teach somebody how to think. Teach them how to ask the questions. And I think that legitimate spiritual teachers need to be informing their people, these are the questions you should ask. If you still feel like you want to go forward, then there's something. I would never get in the way of somebody's experience. But if spiritual teachers are watching snake oil salesmen come in and take advantage of people, and they're not teaching them at least what are the questions to ask, what should you look for, and I know people accuse me of being very passionate because I'm not about finger pointing. I'm about educating the spiritual seeker. And, I think that one of the things that's really important here, and I take this from my childhood. You said you were in the foster care system.
Absolutely.
And you bounced around all, okay. As a child, I was abused a lot. And I found out, and a few years ago, I was at an aunt's funeral and had a number of the elders of my family say that they knew I was being abused, but you didn't talk about it. And I will not, until the day I die, not talk if I see something's wrong. And spiritual abuse is just as bad as any other kind. So I'm not about pointing fingers, but I want people to know what they should be looking for. So if somebody said, hey, I heard this Lakota stuff is great, and I'm going to go study with this person over here, and they tell you 3 or 4 things, and you go, that's absolutely not Lakota. You going to keep your mouth shut?
Oh no, that's not what I'm saying at all.
Okay, so
that's not
elaborate.
what I'm saying at all. I don't know if you want me to talk more about the Lakota way or just spirituality.
Just
spirituality, whatever you're drawn
in general. The reason I say go out and experience it all is because for me it was valuable. I didn't have someone in my life that guided me, that pointed me in the right direction. And maybe it was supposed to be that way. But I know for myself, when someone comes to me with, those types of questions or for a little guidance or, how did you, get started or whatever, I might say just, trust this. And if you're getting two conflicting things, question that, and if you're questioning yourself about something, don't invest yourself 100% in it. really question it. And if you're not sure, ask someone who's been down that road. I definitely, if I saw someone harming another person, I would not stand there and let that happen. I can't tell you how many times I've seen a mother hit her child in front of me. That just does not go good with me. It still doesn't after all these years. It still doesn't. But even at that, I would still be. I'd be like, just use a little caution. And maybe that's what they're drawn to. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. But I just use a little caution. If that's not what you're looking for, use a little caution.
I do, when I hear somebody tell me something that they've heard from a spiritual teacher or somebody that's putting themselves out as a spiritual teacher that disturbs me, I don't point fingers, I ask questions. Mm-hmm. I want to develop their critical thinking skills. I want their logic to kill it, because one of the problems is that many people that are seekers haven't learned how to listen to their inner voice. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times the only inner voice they know is the one that's laden with a lot of judgment or guilt or lack of self-worth, lack of self-esteem. And so they're hearing something, but it's not the right something. Mm-hmm. And they don't know the difference, which is, again, why if a mother is slapping her child, it is up to another adult to say something. Mm-hmm. And if you see, somebody taking advantage of a situation, you can at least offer some thought processes to guide people. So you do the Lakota, which I think is fascinating, but I don't want to, you said that they tend to keep it quiet. Now, how long have you been studying that?
For about 10 years, I've been in this community, and I really love them. To me, they're like family. And, I participate in the ceremony in the summertime. It's called the Sundance ceremony. It's a pretty rigid ceremony physically and mentally and spiritually, and we have to take a lot of time to prepare for it. And it's really shaped a lot of the direction of my life, and it certainly brought some, we call them whirlwinds. Sometimes it's turned my world upside down. Mm-hmm. And in the moment, it may not have felt like the best thing, but when the storm goes by, the whirlwind, we go, oh, that's why it happened. And and it's just part of that expansion, of being a human being, being here in this physical form. So I get a lot out of it. I really do.
Yeah, I've been an observer, not a participant at a Sundance in Colorado when I lived there. Mm-hmm. And it was long enough ago, I cannot swear it was Lakota Sundance, but I was a Sundance. Mm-hmm. And it was crazy. If I had stayed around, I would have been doing it the next year. Mm-hmm. But I was, as oftentimes in my life, passing through.
Well, it's something that you either feel that you're drawn to or not. And I've had, before I even engaged or even began to follow that particular tradition, I had a lot of dreams, and I didn't know what they were, and they were very significant. And then when I started to learn about it, and I saw, some things, I was like, that's what it is. That's what it is. And I felt the call, and I had to. Whether I do this particular ceremony the rest of my life, I don't think so. I think it's, I'm pretty much almost near the end of that.
It was a season.
It was a season. Like I did my 2 commitments, and I think at the end of this commitment, that will be it. It doesn't mean that there's some traditions and some other ceremonies that I won't have in my life, because I definitely will, because I love that way of life. But I think the Sundance in itself, I don't think that I will participate as a Sundancer, more as a supporter. Mm-hmm.
Now you teach a couple of different drumming circles or run circle. Are you teaching circle or running circle, or elaborate?
I run a drumming circle, and the drumming circle I have a drum that I call medicine drum, and it was awakened during a blood moon. And it's a very, it's a beautiful drum, and it's a Lakota woman that made it from from the hide to the tree from the area of South Dakota. And it was really beautiful, and it was specifically made for me. It was a gift. And I use this drum to bring people together. And not necessarily to teach a Native American way or Lakota way, but just to bring people together, to just raise a vibration and awareness that we're all in this together. And sometimes people really, really get a lot out of it, and they go, you know what, I never felt that kind of energy before. I felt like we were all one, and it's more about that than anything else. And, and I do it several times a year at several places, and, we just have a lot of fun doing it. And we do it with children too, and it's really, really fun. The children love it.
Mm-hmm. Now you're local, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I've just got to mention that because we do a full moon drumming circle at the Wolfe Healing Center.
I know, I saw
and
that.
we would love to have you come hang out. It's just we do a energy there. We exchange energy work, do a meditation, and then we just do a drum for whatever. Very loose, So, but certainly we would love to have you show up for one of our full moon drummings just to hang out and share energy. It would be fun.
Yeah.
So, the Lakota. Now, you said that Reiki healed your life, and Reiki has become, at times, a somewhat controversial thing in the spiritual community. So, when were you first introduced to Reiki? Like,
I was introduced to Reiki in the early 80s by a lady that I worked with. I worked in a pharmacy at the time. And she introduced me to it in a way that she said it was more like New Age. That was back when they were starting to talk about New Age ways of doing things. And this was in Canada. And I really liked it. I didn't know much about it. But it kind of, I don't know, she kind of spooked me a little bit. I was much younger than I am now, obviously. And it just spooked me a little bit. And it was probably because of the way that I was brought up. You just don't talk about those things. You don't talk about those things. So it spooked me a little bit. So I stayed away from it. And when I moved to New Hampshire and decided to go back to college and massage therapy, and they started to talk about Reiki, I was like, oh, I heard about that a long time ago. And of course now I'm a little older. I've opened up a little bit, and still scared of my own shadow, but opened up a little. And I said, okay, well, maybe I'll try it. And I tried it, and I really feel that it's healed my life in every way. Emotionally, spiritually, and mentally, and physically, it certainly helps in that way. But for me, it was mostly the trauma of my childhood. And that took a long time to heal. But I really feel that applying Reiki as a daily practice, and I still do, has helped to I don't want to say manage it, but to heal it. In the beginning, it was more about managing it because I didn't understand a lot of that pain that I was still carrying around, and a lot of that anger, and and I had every right to it, but I didn't understand a lot of it, and I didn't have the opportunity to be like other people and go to support groups, or to have someone nurturing in my life to maybe alleviate some of that, or therapy. I didn't have that. And for me, Reiki really helped me a lot with that. And it showed me, and it allowed me to express some of that in a healthy way. For me, it was by writing, and sometimes it was just by shedding tears. And it was the best thing. It brought love in my life in a way that I never thought it would ever. And I felt like when I was a little kid that would never happen. I thought you needed another person, to feel love. But now I know that for me, Reiki has done that, and it continues to do that.
So, so you went through Reiki 1, Reiki...
Yeah, Reiki 1 and Reiki 2 was on the same weekend. And, then she recommended that we would wait some time before making a commitment to become a Reiki Master. And the reason that she did that was so that she saw that we were really serious and committed to applying this in our daily life. Not just for our own personal use, but maybe to bring it also to others who might need it. And whatever we were going to do with our lives, whether it was to be a nurse or to be a massage therapist or to, some kind of healer. And when I was ready to become, and it took me a long time to decide to become a Reiki Master, and it's not because I didn't want to, but I felt like I had a lot of healing to do. So I really feel, for me, that the Reiki, from the time that we become Reiki 1 and 2 practitioners, that it's an individual thing for the person, and I think it's really up to your Reiki teacher to get to know you and have that rapport and relationship to help you in deciding whether you are ready after 6 months or a year or 2 years, depending on what your life path is. For some people, they become Reiki 1 and Reiki 2 practitioners, they use it for a little while and bloop, they don't use it anymore. And then it takes them years, all of a sudden they go, you know what, that was really good for me 12 years ago, I'm going to go back to it. So everyone's journey with it, I believe, is different. And some people just want to do it because it's curious or to add it to their resume.
Yes.
So
we've had some of those stories show up on our show, unfortunately.
yeah.
So you went on, because becoming a Reiki Master and then becoming a Reiki Master teacher are not the same thing. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm assuming, because hearing that you did a Reiki 1 and a Reiki 2 on the same weekend, mm-hmm. that you were, that this was a, now, don't take offense when I say this, because there's Reiki Alliance and there's Renegade Reiki. Mm-hmm. And I don't use the word renegade as a bad thing, mm-hmm. considering how many times I've been called it. Mm-hmm. So you went, so it was obvious, clearly a renegade Reiki, because that's not the Alliance, how the Alliance tradition does it. And so then there was Reiki Master, and so then you went on Reiki Master, and then you continued on to Reiki Teacher, yes?
Yes, that's how it was for me.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Because, one of the things people, a lot of, we do get feedback from our viewers, and one of the things is they hear a lot of things about Reiki, and they hear a lot of mixed things about Reiki, mm-hmm. and then there's a lot of people offering Reiki out there, and it gets offered in a lot of different ways.
It sure does.
You got your Reiki Mastership when?
2000.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I got mine in 94. Mm-hmm. But we wanted somebody else that had a different experience from mm-hmm. us to also have this conversation with. Mm-hmm. I've always looked at Reiki Mastership as self-mastery, so kind of on the same line that you do. It's mm-hmm. it's a mm-hmm. thing. And I think sometimes people have to wait so long because they have to wait that long to decide that they deserve to be that self-loving.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah, so it's a self-loving thing. So
I also have to add, it's also sometimes because they have to eliminate some of the obstacles.
Absolutely.
That they have to iron out mm-hmm. prior to going on to that next level.
Yeah.
Because we always have obstacles. But if you were to move on to these levels and not have the prior obstacles kind of ironed out, it makes it harder for you to move on. Mm-hmm. You remember, the master, it's not that they're masters, it's that you're a master because you're always learning.
Absolutely.
You're always going through the trials and tribulations so that you can become stronger in spirit.
Yeah.
Well, it's very interesting, because when I got the push from Spirit to study Reiki, I was already well into my spiritual practice as a spiritual practitioner.
So was I.
And I did a form of hands-on healing already. I'd been a medical intuitive mm-hmm. for years. I'd done all that stuff. And when Spirit kind of pushed me that I needed to study Reiki, and that Spirit wanted me to study Reiki, I literally had a conversation with Spirit, and I said, okay, the only thing I know about Reiki is all the people that have Reiki degrees that are my clients or that I see out in the world, and they all share one thing, which is they're all powerful when they're a Reiki master teaching or doing, and then the rest of their life is a disaster. So do I have to have a disastrous life to study Reiki? That was my question to Spirit. Does my life have to dysfunction because this is what I see? It's like they step into Reiki and they're great and they're wonderful and they're powerful, and they step out of Reiki and they're abused and they're self-abusive and they're addictives and all of these other things. And I'm like, I don't really want my life to have to go dysfunctional enough to study Reiki. That was my first conversation with Spirit
Exactly.
about Reiki. So like, I know you do Reiki 1 in what, a day?
A full day.
Yeah. And I am guilty. I take 2 days because I want my students to have more hands-on practice in front of me to work with hand positions and stuff like that.
But with mine, with my Reiki 1, that full day, they cannot come back to do the Reiki 2 for at least a month.
Yeah.
Because they need to sit with that, and they have question periods throughout that month to me.
Yeah.
Is that how you were taught?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how it was.
That's your lineage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think everyone's lineage is a little bit different. You know, I mean, like I said, I was taught one day Reiki 1, and then the next day we had Reiki 2. But we had to spend a certain amount of time and to show that we were committed to become a Reiki master and we were going to apply it in our life. And I don't have, large classes of 10, 12, or 20 people. Usually I have classes of maybe 1, 2, sometimes 1, but, like 2 or 3 or 4 people maximum, and they know each other.
Yeah.
And I have done Reiki 1 in the morning and then Reiki 2 in the afternoon. But the people that I attract are people who are ready and going to apply it in their life, it's a for real thing. It's not just a one-time thing. I have had people come up to me and says, Liz, I do all this other energy work, and it would be nice for me to have that on my resume as Reiki. And I'm like, why do you want to do that?
Well, okay, wait a second. You caught my attention here.
Yeah.
So you're teaching the history, all the hand positions, doing a self-treatment, doing a treatment on somebody else,
Distance healing.
distance healing, and you're doing all of that in half a day?
Yeah, like I said, there's only, I only have a few students, but I also follow up with them after that. We have a relationship after, and we talk, like on a regular basis. Where are you with that? And if they have questions, they'll ask me. But it's not, honestly, I've just started to teach the Reiki this year. And I have not taught a lot. And I've done a lot of Reiki shares, I still do. And the reason that I've been slow on getting my business going is because I wanted to get a feel of what is out there and what fits good for me, because I really love the traditional Usui system, as we've been talking about, and I want to stick to that. But I don't want to complicate it either. The way that I was taught the Usui system by my teacher is that you give the information, like the hand positions. You can show them the hand positions. And this is what she taught us, was that you don't have to follow that exact pattern, because Reiki is going to go where Reiki is going to go. And that you're the vessel for that Reiki to go there. And you need to understand what the signs are, the symbols are for, and when you can apply them. And but Reiki is going to go where Reiki is going to go.
So
that's the way that I was taught. But having all of that information and being around other people who I've had the wonderful opportunity of doing Reiki shares, and certainly in this platform, I take a lot of that with me. And not that I want to complicate what it is that I know from Reiki and how it's been in my life and the traditional system, but if for me it feels more like I need to take a whole day just doing Reiki 1 with 1 or 2 individuals, then I will. But like I said, it's not like I attuned 100 or 200 people this year. I haven't. I've only attuned, maybe a dozen people, maybe 14 tops. But they're all people that know each other, and we're totally going into that
Well,
direction.
you know, one of the things that, like, you're speaking about the hand positions. One of the things that I will say with the Usui Reiki that I train, and that was brought through when I was with my teacher. And so like, we both had spiritual energy healing prior to learning Reiki, you and I.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so when I go and work with my Reiki energy, I embellish that energy healing that I already knew of prior to training myself with Usui Reiki. And I actually will show them how to intuitively work with that energy. And I honestly will say to them the same thing, that here are the hand positions, and you should honor them for the fact that you are becoming a Reiki practitioner. However, you are the vessel that is flowing through. And you have to, and that's the biggest point with me with Reiki, is that you're no longer taking, and this is the piece that I found with Reiki, I was no longer taking the energies out of my own, expelling it from myself. I was actually flowing it back and forth.
Yeah, and and what I've known from some of the, people that I've attuned this year, is that some of them have never done any other type of energy work. And if they've never done any other type of energy work, that's when I slow down and take the time to go over all the hand position with them. Because some of them are very methodical about things. They like a certain order of things. I'm like, then you want to use that. But if someone has already got some kind of energy work, as you say, and they're already kind of open and already have that vessel flowing, then Reiki's going to go where it needs to go.
However, though, I do want to say that as I work as a Reiki Master teacher, one of the things in my classroom, when I do the Reiki 1 and the Reiki 2 in their separate points, in one of those, I actually add into the segment protection methods. What are the chakras? Because as you say, some of the people that are just coming in for that first time, they need to know, some of them don't even know what a chakra is. So for me to sit there and show that in itself is a lesson.
And
so it's kind of that, and that's why I do the way I do.
Yeah.
The hand positions were created that, when they're done thoroughly, touch every major organ, touch meridian points, and touch the chakras. And, one of my greatest teachers always said, all structure was created to transcend, but you cannot transcend what you do not have. And in a day where people are grabbing fast food spirituality, I'm not interested in working with them. You need to learn those hand positions before you do away with them. You have to understand what they do.
No, yes, I agree with you.
You have to understand what they do. You have to understand why they were created. And, for me, demonstrate you can do all of them before you start doing it. Because I don't know the difference between following your intuitive and you forgot. And, of course, I don't teach Reiki, Usui Reiki anymore, because I teach the Wei Chi healing, which is based on my book, The Lost Steps of Reiki. So I'm not oh my God, I used to hear horror stories of people that, like, you have 2 minutes and the bell rings, and if you don't move, you could get thrown out of class type of Reiki teachers. But there's still, know the story, because it's Usui, know the history, understand when Reiki can do harm, because you have to know when Reiki can do harm. And when somebody comes to me as a Reiki person and says, oh, Reiki can never do harm, I go, you were not well trained then. And so there is a responsibility, and again, a thought teaching process that has to be involved, that it isn't just, oh yeah, I'm just going to run around and do this on everybody and everything. And I think that it's part of the reason why Reiki has become, at times, a laughingstock. And it's a sad thing because Reiki can change lives and it can make a difference. And you're teaching somebody something that can change their life, which is, and you and I have always, not that we actually disagree on it. You do it one way, I do it another.
Yeah.
I spend the extra day because that's my investment of, no, I'm going to have you get a treatment. I'm going to have you watch a treatment. I'm going to have you do a treatment. Well, if you do that correctly, that's 3 hours right there. So I have no comprehension how you can do Reiki 1 in less than 1 day. I mean, and I'm not trying to attack you, but I'm just flabbergasted because how are these people doing treatments on each other? How are they showing or demonstrating that they have it? How do they, I mean, they walk out like a half-loaded gun. I would have to watch your class to see how you've sped up time.
Well, I certainly didn't come here to defend how I do things. I do it the way that I was taught. And
But you were taught a day.
I firmly believe in the way that I was taught. And we were, and again, when we started, you said that there's a lot of different ideas and misconceptions of Reiki and how it is and how it was and, what people think of it, and people seem to be confused. Again, go with what feels right for you. And for me, if something feels right for me, I'm going to go with it. If it doesn't feel right for me, I'm not going to go with it. But I was taught Reiki by someone who was taught by John Harvey Gray, whose lineage is almost direct. And her teaching was that there are absolutely no contraindications for Reiki because we are not in charge of manipulating that energy, that life source. All we are is a vessel that's attuned, that's open to that life source. And when we invoke that source to come through, it's going to go where it needs to go. And for the highest best of the individual or the space or whatever it is that we're trying to do in that time. And all I am is just the vessel for it to go through. It's not up to me to direct it, manipulate it, ask it. It's going to go where it needs to go. And for you, you were taught in a different way. And you're saying that, there are some things that might be contraindicative to that, and which is fine. That's the way that you were taught. And I don't think that that's wrong. I don't think the way that I was taught was wrong. I don't think the way that you were taught was wrong. I think it's just having different teachers and going with what flows and what feels good for you.
Right to you.
But you said you are following the path of your teacher.
Yeah.
And your teacher taught it in a day.
She taught us Reiki 1 in a day and Reiki 2 in a day, but her class was huge. I mean, she's been doing this for decades.
Yeah, I know your teacher.
And that's the way that I was taught. But I don't have these huge classes. First of all, I wouldn't be comfortable. And I don't think that I would be able to offer a one-on-one, opportunity. To me, I feel like it's more of an intimate setting. It's a little bit... it's calmer, and it gives more time for questions and for us to practice on each other and to get a treatment, receive a treatment, apply some of these things, and practice the symbols and all of that. And that's why I tend to have my classes a little bit smaller.
Yeah, I don't do assembly line Reiki.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan. So I'm with you there 100%.
And some of them that I've done the classes to, I've went into their homes where it's very, very comfortable for them. And that's what I prefer to do.
Yeah. I usually, honestly, my classes, I used to have up to 8 students. And that was a totally full day. But now I actually do it, a lot of times I'll do it one-on-one. And I will actually have them come, they'll either bring somebody to be the guinea pig, so to speak, to the energy. Or I'll have a couple only and have them work with each other.
Yeah, back when I was still teaching Usui Reiki, I basically got down to, well, I would never do mastership for more than 2. I like 2 because I like them to be mirrors for each other. But Reiki 1 and Reiki 2, I used to do the 8 actually at one point, because I had a co-teacher, would do a 12-person class because there was 2 of us teaching it. But then I got down to, it was like, it's 2, possibly 4 max, depending on the students and whether it felt right. But definitely a small class. We have run out of time.
Wow, my goodness.
Boy, that time went through
It's been
quick.
a very interesting discussion with this.
Absolutely, it was wonderful.
We, and this is like enlightening us to how this energy is around us.
This energy is around. Liz, I know that they have put your contact information underneath your lovely face at times, so people will know how to contact you. It will be at the end of the show. And again, I would love to see you come to hang out one of the full moon drumming. We actually do a little Reiki share before we start the drumming, where anybody that does Reiki that can volunteer and do Reiki on anybody in the circle that wants it. And then we do the meditation, and then we do the drumming. It sounds like it would be right up your alley. We'd love to have you.
Absolutely.
Come hang out. So, your path is in front of you. You want to own it, make it yours. Also, however, ask good questions. Open yourself up to know that the intellect is not the stepchild to the intuitive. They are equal voices that were given to you by Spirit, so you could use both of them from a place of heart and a guidance of Spirit. Namaste.